Hello everyone, Joe Killinger with theRRD. This is part 2 of short-term rental conversations. I want to continue now with if I am the tenant and I want to approach my landlord, what should I tell my landlord? How can I tell them that I want to do this and get them to really work with me on allowing me to do the short-term rentals?
Well, the first step, let's backtrack a little. Before you approach the landlord, you should make sure that a short-term rental is legal in your particular municipality, because some cities and some are not zoned for that and will not permit it, and fines will be incurred that to the tenant, which will also be passed on to the landlord, and could then subject you to.
Okay, so if I'm a tenant, if I am the tenant, I guess we already established that, but if I get caught, let's say I'm in, what's a city here that doesn't allow the short-term?
Santa Monica.
Santa Monica. I live in Santa Monica, I'm renting, I put my unit up on the market, and I get it leased out over whatever, 3-4 days, and I get caught, and then I get a fine, but then I can pass that on to the owner, or?
No, the city can pass that on to the owner. The owner has the ultimate liability for the building. So
Okay.
whatever the dynamic or the legalities are between you and the tenant, it's the owner who will be fined by the city.
Okay.
So, which of course then would probably put you in default under your lease under a subletting provision and will subject you to eviction. So it really ends up being a big mess if you don't.
Because I doubt in my lease that it's going to specify that I can do short-term rentals, most likely, right?
It will probably prohibit subletting, which
Right.
most leases do, even the standard apartment association generic templates
Okay.
usually do. And the short-term rentals would be classified as subletting under the terms of the lease, which would make it you'd be in default of your lease and then subject to eviction if the landlord chose to go that route.
Okay, now what if I would offer to the landlord a percentage of what I bring in? Is that something that's typically done?
That is one of the options, either a percentage or a flat rate of your short-term rental profits. There are a few other options. One is you can offer to extend your lease term. To some landlords that might be appealing. They don't have to go through the process of looking for another renter and doing a background check, credit check, and showing the place and all of that. You can prepay some of the rent, which may be enticing to some landlords. You can do your own research as to whichever particular short-term rental company that you're going to utilize that have their own insurance. I know that Airbnb does have $1 million policy per rental, per occurrence. So, but I don't really know, I don't know the ramifications of that. As the tenant and the leasee, you would probably want to look into that and explain it to your landlord to see what's covered, to give them a little bit more comfort. You can offer to purchase your own renter's insurance. I do know that a lot of that's limited to the personal property of the renter. So you would probably want to talk to, whatever insurance company and see how that carries over and it impacts the homeowner's insurance and the landlord.
Now wait, what if and you might not know this, being you're not in insurance, but I have a renter's insurance policy.
Okay.
I rent it out through the short-term rental company. And some damage happens, and it's just enough that I'm probably not going to go to Airbnb and say, hey, I need this $1 million policy, but I want to just turn it in on my homeowners or my renter's insurance. What is the ramifications, or are there any, if I turn that in?
Well, part of the problem is most renter's insurance covers personal property, doesn't cover damage.
Right.
A landlord, as we discussed in the previous video, is required by law to have insurance for the entire building. So if a claim is submitted, the landlord's homeowner's insurance will deny a claim. Let's say if it's submitted under your rental policy, rental insurance. Chances are for property damage it will be denied. If something is paid out, there's a chance of a subrogation claim being tendered under the homeowner's policy. If as we discussed before, if a homeowner's insurance carrier finds out that a unit's being rented as a business, which a short-term rental is, they will not only deny the claim, but they have the option of canceling the entire policy, which of course then will leave you again being subject to eviction and default and a whole big mess with your landlord. And the landlord in significant trouble because they have an illegal building with no insurance, which they're required by law to have.
Okay.
Another option is you can limit the number of rentals, the number of people. As I mentioned before, you want to do low risk to the landlord instead of high risk. So if you limit, say, 2 people twice a month or something like that, rather than having this sort of revolving door or the potential for
Not every weekend.
Every weekend,
Yeah.
that could be an option. Probably 2 of the most significant things would be to amend the lease so that you could cover, agree to cover certain damages yourself, so that the property damage that wouldn't be covered under a renter's policy, you would agree to pay for and have that spelled out in the lease. Because the entire purpose of the lease is to protect you as the tenant and to protect the landlord. That would probably make the landlord feel more comfortable. And then finally, you can offer to increase the security deposit, which would cover some, any potential damage that the landlord could incur. Certainly not an exhaustive list, and I think any tenant should do a little bit of research before they approach the landlord. But certainly, I would not recommend trying to do it behind the landlord's back. If a landlord does find out, again, you're now subject to default of your lease and eviction, and it's probably something you want to avoid.
Yeah, probably, right. Okay, so I hope that helps. These are, like you said, it's not an exhaustive list, but it's a list that you should put together. Really think about it before you approach your landlord. Have a sit down with them and say, listen, I plan on running this. It is a business. So just have a conversation with them and save everybody a lot of headaches. Thank you.